Yeah, there you go.
And welcome back, everybody, to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman. Now, our special guest today, I went to Bradley University with. He was on the track and field team at Bradley, is now working for a football club in Chicago. Please welcome my special guest, Miguel Agyei. Miguel, how you doing today?
Doing great, Ben. How you doing today, man?
Great. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see other people that I went to school with in the industry trying to find their way around. So I'm glad about you doing this podcast. Pretty interesting content that you got here.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. I mean, we're all trying to make it big someday, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely felt that.
Now, to start things off, Miguel, I want to congratulate you for graduating from Bradley this year. How have things been since graduation?
Since graduating from Bradley in May, things have been pretty smooth. Um, After graduation, I had an internship lined up that I'm currently doing right now with Chicago Fire FC, which is a blast because, I've always wanted to work in the soccer industry, and to get an internship right after graduation to work for a soccer club is fantastic and it's huge for me. So it's been pretty good. It's a bit weird to not have assignments and not have practice, being a student athlete.
Mhm.
So the amount of free time that I have now is like a bit weird, and trying to like adjust and figure out things to replace school and practice. So, but other than that, it's been pretty good.
I'm sure that's a big transition. And I mean, you just mentioned it, but you are a brand ambassador as well as a communications intern for the Chicago Fire FC. Tell us a little bit about what you do on a day to day basis with CFFC.
Yeah, so I started off as a brand ambassador. I was convinced that, post grad I'd have a full-time job lined up, but that's not how life works sometimes. And, you got to go with the flow. So I got hired as a brand ambassador early March, and that's kind of like match day staff. So you kind of help out with games and help out with fans and fan services and stuff like that. Um, and then I was lucky enough to secure the communications internship role with the Chicago Fire. So I don't really do the brand ambassador role as much anymore, but it's still something that I could technically still do if I wanted to. But as to being a communications intern, basically every day I compile daily media coverage of the team. So any news articles, any TV hits, any of the content that our team posts on their websites and stuff like that. We compile that all into a document, send it out to the rest of the staff so that they can read what's happening about the club. Um, Focus heavily on MLS news, any new news coming. Gareth Bale just signed for Los Angeles FC, which is huge for the league. And then soccer news, Chicago sports news, and then just sports news in general. So, the Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup series, so stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the MLS is not as popular as, let's just say, like the Premier League, for example, but how has that fan experience really, I guess, gone with such a smaller league like the MLS?
Well, when you really think about it, MLS hasn't been around for as long as the Premier League has. So it's something that is still growing. And I think that right now it's kind of at the peak of its growth right now. You got plenty of MLS teams, expanding. You have St. Louis having a new soccer club. Inter Miami is pretty new. Austin FC is pretty new. So it's definitely growing around. I don't think it'll hit the peak of the Premier League anytime soon, but you got big name stars like Giorgio Chiellini, Carlos Vela, Gareth Bale. All these big name players are starting to come to the MLS, so it's growing in popularity, and I think that the MLS is doing a really great job right now marketing the league, because you don't have to be a soccer fan to go to an MLS game, but the experience that you get at a game is kind of what brings people to, come more. There's a guy that I work with. He's not really a soccer fan. He's into hockey, but he got into the industry, and he's like, yeah, I actually kind of like soccer. It's quite interesting. So I think MLS is growing, and within the next 5, 10 years, it'll be a bit bigger than what it is right now. But right now, we're we're at a really good spot right now.
Soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, it's no secret that this sport is, the most popular sport in the entire world. But in your opinion, what do you think makes soccer so entertaining?
For me, I think what makes soccer so entertaining is, it takes so much just to score a goal. It's not like football or, basketball where, people are scoring constantly. Sometimes in a football game, you have one team score 46 points and the other team will score 26, something like that. But in soccer, it's very rare that, you have a game that's 4-0 or 4-2. So the dynamic of an entire team and how they have to work together to find the back of the net and some of the defensive plays. People say soccer isn't a physical sport, but it's pretty physical if you ask me. And it's just something that I kind of grew up on, so it has a special place in my heart for me. But also the different storylines that come with soccer, because people just think that soccer is just soccer, but then we think about all the superstars and some of them came from nothing, like literally playing soccer with no shoes in the dirt, and they've made it to the big stage. The storylines behind that and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes is just kind of what makes soccer so special to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you mentioned it being a big part of your life. You've been able to be a writer and a content creator for talking about AC Milan. But I mean, it's no secret that AC Milan is probably your favorite team. But what is it about that team that you like so much?
Honestly, I get asked this question a lot, and I don't know, it's just one of those things. It's like you picked a team and you kind of just ran with it. So I remember it was back in 2010. I had FIFA 10. I was playing it, and I was like, I gotta find a team because I grew up watching the Premier League, and my family are Chelsea fans, so I was kind of already a Chelsea fan by default because of family. But then I was like, yeah, I gotta pick a team that was my own. So I was scrolling through the FIFA menu. Someone just told me to go to Italy, so I went to Italy, found AC Milan. I really liked the badge and the colors. Um, and I was like, yeah, that's my team. And then I just ran away with it. So I've been watching them since I was 10. I was able to see them win their first championship the year later, 2011, which was amazing. And they had a bunch of superstars. They had some big name shots. They had Ronaldinho, they had Pirlo, they had Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Alexander Pato, Thiago Silva. So like it was like I picked the team at the right time, and then I saw the team kind of disperse. There was some financial issues. They had to sell players, and I've just been a part of this journey to see the slow rise. It's kind of like the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016. You wait so long to see your team like thrive again, and then you see it. And this year we won the Italian championship, so it's kind of just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I picked that team and I stuck with them, and to finally see them going back to where they once were as a big club just means a lot to me. So that's kind of why I just have a special spot for that team.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand. I mean, when it comes to the NFL, at least I'm from Michigan. I've grew up a Detroit Lions fan, but at the same time, I've also became a major Saints fan when they won their first championship. Can't explain to you why I like them, but same boat as you. I just love that team for whatever reason. I mean, going off of that, who are some of your favorite players to watch? Whether that be MLS, Premier League, any league in the world, really.
I think one of my favorite players to watch is definitely Cristiano Ronaldo. I think that guy is just a super athlete. He's like a freakish athlete, like takes care of his body. He's like the LeBron of soccer, in my opinion. Um, and wherever that guy goes, he makes the team better. He's always scoring goals. He's getting a little older now, and age is starting to catch up with him. So he's not the same as was what he once was, a couple years ago. But just to see him and Messi just dominate the soccer scene for the last 10 years is just absolutely amazing. And that's just like a gift, that doesn't happen quite often. So yeah, that's one of, the few players that I really enjoy. Um, if we're talking MLS, I really like I like to watch LAFC. And I covered them for a little bit when they won the MLS Shield a couple seasons ago, right before COVID happened. I think Carlos Vela is a very, underrated player for what he does on the pitch. And he had that stellar season where he broke the MLS goal scoring record. So he's one of those players that has something key in him that people don't really see. He doesn't really get that much of attention on the Mexican national team, but at LAFC, he's kind of the guy who holds the reins for them, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo's celebrations are probably some of my favorites in the entire just sporting industry. Just so.
Muchas gracias, afición. Este para vosotros.
Yes, that is a classic. Like, and you think about it, it's like he just came up with that out of thin air, and you think about how many kids do that celebration now. It's like it's so amazing.
You and I went to Bradley together, but you were not on the soccer team. You were on the track and field team. What made you want to run track instead of playing soccer?
So at a young age, I played soccer from maybe about 10 till 14. Um, I was a striker. I was decent. Wasn't in any academies. It wasn't, superstar talent or whatever. I just played it because I love soccer. Um, and in sixth grade, I was told by a couple of my friends that I should try out for track and field. And I was like, track and field, like, who wants to run for a sport? Like, that's terrible. And then in eighth grade, they were like, yeah, we really need people for the track team. We're like, we won't have a track team. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. I gave it a try and I was pretty good at it. I was pretty fast. I wasn't the fastest, in eighth grade, but I was definitely top three. Put me in the 4x1 relay and I kind of just ran away with it. I was like, okay, I'm really good at track, so maybe I should invest more time in track. It kind of sucked because, going into high school, I didn't try out for soccer because I was like, don't do it. Just invest your time in track. And then my sophomore year of high school, I fell in love with hurdles because there was a coach and he was like, I think you're a hurdler, man. So we tried it out. I really liked it. Uh, I was ranked second as a sophomore in the city. So I was like, yeah, I think this is it for me. So then after that, I never looked back. And then, being a senior, I always wanted to go D1 and I was told my friends that I was going to go D1. So when I saw the opportunity at Bradley, I was like, let's run away with it. So I ran away with it and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, absolutely. And going off of that, you obviously chose Bradley, but what made you pick Bradley over other potential schools?
So I chose Bradley because Bradley had the sports communications discipline, which, is kind of hard to find, especially in the Midwest. There's not that many schools. I was in talks with Butler because they have a sports management program, but I was more so leaning towards, communications and not business sides of sports, not sports management. So it was that, and Bradley wasn't that far from home. Bradley also offered kind of the most money, which was, a huge part in that. Um, I could have went to Arizona State, but I was like, that's way too far from home. I've been in Chicago all my life. I didn't want to make that big move, because like if I want to come home on a weekend, I gotta, hop on a flight, and it's not like a 2.5 hour drive. So those were the factors that kind of made me want to go to Bradley. And with Bradley, um, it was kind of special because I went to Bradley to build something. And I think that, my 4 years at Bradley, we actually have established something. When I first got to Bradley, when we go to track meets, people, Brad knew Bradley as a distance team, not a sprint team. And we've slowly, with the help of Coach Gosson and Coach McDonald, we've slowly built a sprint program. And I think that, with the constant recruiting that we're doing, I think eventually people are going to be like, wow, Bradley's got something there. So, I mean, even now, we've beaten Illinois State in a couple of relays, and Illinois State's like, wow, Bradley's beating us. Like, we can't let that happen. And the rivalry between us and Illinois State. So
Oh yeah.
those are the reasons why, I decided to go to Bradley, and I don't regret that decision at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but track and field was something that you had to kind of grow to love. But now that your track and field career is over, what is it that about running that you really grew to enjoy so much?
I think for me, what I loved about running so much was always knowing that I could do better and just seeing the growth because, you had a guy who didn't really run and, didn't really take the sport seriously, but then started taking it seriously and saw how much more he could do. I was a lanky, skinny guy. I was really, really skinny. And then we got in the weight room and I started to see, whoa, like this skinny guy can actually lift some weight. Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm just skinny, you feel me? Um, and yeah, just the perseverance, track and field really taught me a bunch of life lessons, and it was always just like perseverance, perseverance. You have those times where, you set the bar high and you have these standards, but then you're not quite there yet. And in those moments, it's like, are you going to give up? Are you going to keep pushing? Are you going to let this affect you? Or like, what are you going to do? How are you going to react to that? And track and field always just made me want to go harder. Like, whenever I didn't meet my standards or I didn't get what I wanted, it was like, all right, we got to go back to the drawing board. We have to figure it out and we have to get to the place that we want to be. So, those are the kind of the things that made track and field so special to me.
I mean, it's no secret to anybody who's viewed my podcast that it's located in Grand Rapids, and this season you were actually able to set a personal best for the 400 meters in Grand Rapids at Grand Valley State University. So, as someone who loves his city, I gotta ask, how did you enjoy that meet at Grand Valley?
This is an interesting one because Grand Valley has been a consecutive bad meet for me. Uh, every calendar year, there's two meets that I always do poorly in, and those two meets was Notre Dame and Grand Valley. And this year, I was just like, nah, man, like this year has to be my year. Like I have to go out with a bang. Like, I'm a senior. I'm not taking a fifth year. Like this has to be the year. So going into it all, I was just like, trust the process. Just go out there. You know what you need to do. You've done this before. Just go out there and compete. And that's exactly what I did. At Notre Dame, we ran the DMR, ran a personal best in that DMR, and everybody was like, "Whoa, Miguel!" Like, "Whoa!" And I was just like, "Hey, man, I just came to run. I wanted to go out with a bang. This is my last season. Like, we gotta make something special happen." And then at Rapids, it was a bit difficult. I was extremely nervous before that race for some reason. Don't know why. I usually don't get nervous like that unless it's a big meet. But I was nervous and we were just running. We were in a little pack and this guy cut me off. And I was like, ah, you got to stay on his tail. You got to stay on his tail. Ran a personal best. And I was just like, wow, I really ran that. And to run that indoors, run a 50 indoors is insane because I usually don't touch that until outdoors. So to see that I touched that indoors was like, wow, all the hard work that I've been putting in since, summer training has really been paying off. So that meet was a special one for me.
You know, that wasn't the only record that you broke this year. I mean, you had a great season this year, setting a school record for the 60-meter hurdles. How do you think going to Bradley really helped you develop as a runner?
I think going to Bradley, was a huge blessing and it really helped me develop immensely. Bradley wasn't too big of a school where I wouldn't get the attention that I need. I got the help from my professors, I got the help from my coaches, and even the athletic and training staff, which was a huge boost. But I think that also my development really came from Coach McDonald, who really believed in me. She saw a lot of potential in me. Um, and some coaches, they don't really speak on that. Coach McDonald was very vocal. She was like, I know what you're capable of doing. I just need you to tap in and believe and just trust me. There's going to be some days that you're going to be suffering and you're going to hate me, but I promise you, it'll work out in the end and you'll be happy. And I did that. She'd always tell me, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I learned that a lot my junior year, transitioning from a short sprinter to a long sprinter. I wasn't a 400 guy and I never wanted to be a 400 guy, but all that training really helped. It helped me get more strength, it helped me be more explosive, and that transition into me hurdling. Um, I was always good at hurdles, but I wasn't, top notch. But that transition and that training really helped me to flip the switch to be able to be up there with the top notch dudes. And that helped me break the school record, and that was something that I always wanted to do when I came to Bradley. I was like, I wanna put my name in the record books before I leave here. So I did that. And I'm really happy to say that Bradley helped me do that. I'm happy for, all the help that was brought along the way by the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned it earlier, but when you were introduced to hurdles, you really fell in love with it. And for me personally, I don't even think I could get my leg over a hurdle, let alone run through one. But how do you really get accustomed to jumping hurdles like that?
I tell this to people all the time. For me, it really was just getting over the hurdle the first time. You're kind of scared until you actually do it once, and once you do it once, it's kind of like muscle memory. Um, it's kind of like mm, trying to find like a metaphor for it, but it's kind of like, when you go to the pool for the first time and you're kind of scared to go into the water because it's super cold, but then once you like dip your body into it, like you're like, oh, it's not that bad, and then your body adjusts to it. That's kind of how it was. So, practicing in the hallway and getting over the hurdle the first time, ever since then, it's just been kind of natural to me. And I've never fallen doing hurdles. Of course, I've bumped into a hurdle a couple of times, but like I've never fallen. Uh, and just getting over the hurdle just made me never scared to attack the hurdle and go over it ever again. So that's kind of what helped me, because hurdles is a mental and a physical game, but it's really more about the mental. Once you know that you can do it, it's kind of just there. You just got to push your body to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going off of that, being able to be on a track and field team takes a lot of lung capacity. But how did you go about really developing your lungs to just be able to go for the long for excuse me to go for the long haul?
Well, it all stems from discipline. My freshman year I wasn't as disciplined. Um, And with discipline, I mean like getting 8 hours of sleep, making sure you're eating 3 meals a day, stretching, doing ab workouts, because the abs, cooperate with your lungs. And when you run, you use your abs more than anything. Of course, you use your arms and your legs, but the breathing is what really helps you be able to execute. Um, so yeah, my freshman year, I wasn't as disciplined. Like I was like, okay, I know what I do. I did what I did in high school, but after my freshman year, I kind of made adjustments. I was like, okay, you got to start stretching more. You got to hydrate more. You got to eat more. You got to take care of your body. And then my junior year was like, okay, we're not playing any games with our body. I mean, like, I was going to bed at like 10:30 every night, making sure that I got 8 hours of sleep. And I saw the huge difference with my running, with me taking care of my body and all these things. And then, of course, senior year, I had already knew everything, so it kind of just was that gradual process of learning what did I need to eliminate out of my, day-to-day routine, and what did I need to incorporate in my daily day routine to help me succeed on the track.
Now, you've done numerous things in the sports world. I mean, content creation, writing, photography. How do you think that going to Bradley really helps you develop those skills?
I would say going to Bradley really challenged me. Things weren't really given to me, and things were also a lot more difficult for me because I wasn't like the average college student. I was a student athlete. So time was a very short commodity. I didn't have the same schedules that some people had. I was waking up at 5:30 to go to 6 a.m. practice. And then after that, I'd have to go shower, eat some breakfast, and then go to class for a couple hours. And then after that, I'd have a second practice. And then after that, I'd probably have more classes, or then I'd be done with my day. And, all the extracurricular activities that other students could do, I couldn't do because I just couldn't fit it into my schedule. Um, so for me, Bradley kind of just challenged me to figure it out. When I got to campus for the first time, I asked the athletics department if I could help out with photography because I had did that in high school, and they told me no. So I had to find a way to figure it out. I joined the scout, did some photography for the scout. Um, the classes really helped me with my writing style and honing up my writing skills, and so did the professors. Um, but yeah, at that point, I was like, hey, man, I need to get some type of experience. And being a student athlete and not being able to incorporate that into my schedule isn't an excuse. So I seeked out experience, writing for various websites and creating my own content just to hone in my own skills and make myself a better person. Shout out to Interactive Media for, the little tips that it gave me on Photoshop and Lightroom and video editing and stuff like that. So I think Bradley did a great job of giving me a well-rounded education for me to figure out, okay, what skills did I need to, elaborate on, what skills was I good at. Um, so all those things kind of just helped me grow as an individual. And those are the things that I did to get to where I am today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're both in the creative field, Miguel, but what is it about that creative side that you enjoy so much?
I think what I enjoy about it is it's not repetitive. There's no schedule. Um, don't get me wrong, having a schedule is good, but for people like me and you and people who are into sports, that's kind of why we love sports because you don't know the outcome. Every day is a new day, It's just like the NBA finals.
Mhm.
Warriors were up 2-0 and then Celtics came back 2-2 and you're like, We've got the game on our hands here." So just having that, I would say, that uncertainty and, that creativity, you can do whatever you want with sports content. You can write, you can create a podcast, you can do photography, you can make videos. Just that versatility, being able to express yourself and with the skills that you have that are best suited to you is kind of what makes this job field so special.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, along with your many experiences that you've been able to acquire, I mean, you're also able to be a digital production assistant for NBC for the Tokyo Olympics. Talk to me about what you did for them and how that experience overall was.
So what I did there was I was a digital production assistant, basically in charge of all the live streams for the Olympics. So testing live streams, testing video sources, making sure that they work, sound and audio. It was a big responsibility because you have millions of people watching the Olympics, and the Olympics were going on at odd hours because Tokyo was 12 hours ahead of us. So while people were sleeping, I was up watching the Olympics, cutting highlights, making sure that things are right for people to watch it the next day. Um, Especially on prime time, because we have the prime time hours where we show, the biggest things that happen on the Olympics. And it was a challenge. I've never in my life worked a 12-hour shift, but I had to work 12-hour shifts for 3 weeks straight. First time that I had to drink coffee and get adjusted to that because that was madness. But it really showed me, it takes a team to make sports happen. All the things that happen behind the scenes are really what really matters because if the operator who's on your stream is slacking off and isn't paying attention and something goes wrong and the stream shuts down, you're going to be like, what's happening? And all that plays a huge role. So just that experience of working on your toes, problem solving, figuring it out, all those things kind of really helped me, and it was a fantastic experience. I'm very lucky to say that I worked in the Olympic Games, so that was definitely one for the books for me.
Now, finally, Miguel, just to wrap things up, I mean, we mentioned it earlier, but you have this great opportunity with Chicago Fire FC. What would you say you're most excited for just to see where your career path can take you? And, overall, just what are you most excited about when it comes to your career?
I think what I'm excited about the most is, I don't know where the future will take me. There's so much, I would say, potential for me. I could work in production, and be behind the scenes again, or I can do what I'm doing right now and help the team out with creating content and media coverage. I don't know where I'm gonna end up, but I know wherever I do end up, I'm gonna be successful. I'm gonna work as hard as I can. I think that right now for me the best thing about this industry is how it's growing, and then as well for MLS and soccer as well, that's also growing. So I kind of got lucky. I'm in the industry at the right time, and who knows, maybe I'll join an expansion club and help that team expand its brand and help it get more awareness, or I might just stay in Chicago and hopefully we'll get better and we'll make a playoff run and maybe one day we'll win a title. You know, all those things are kind of the most exciting things about the future of my career for me.
For sure, the future is definitely bright. Miguel, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to see where your career can take you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see where your career helps you as well. I'm rooting for you, Ben. I hope this podcast continues to grow and, you have more and more exciting guests that come on your show and share their story the same way you let me share my story. So thank you.
Let's go wrap it up for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. Thank you so much to Miguel Agyei for coming on and talking about his track and field career, as well as his current job with the Chicago Fire FC. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please like, please subscribe, please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify for more content to come. A big shout out once again to Hidden Harmony for hopping on and creating the music for this episode. If you guys want to follow them, the link to their Instagram page will be in the description below as well. With all that being said, guys, thank you so much again for tuning into the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman, and we'll catch you guys next time.